This video is to demonstrate the steps required in Lab 2. So we need to access the lab instructions. So I'm going to use Mozilla Firefox as my browser to go to the UCA homepage. Oh. So I'll type in uca.edu. Click on the My UCA link. Log into your UCA account. When the My UCA content layout appears, click on the My Courses link, and in your Fall 2014 course list, select Intro Electronic Spreadsheets. So this will be Lab 2. So on your Blackboard menu on the left, click on the assignment link. And we've already seen Lab 1. So I'm going to scroll down to Lab 2. More formulas and functions. It is due on Wednesday, August 27th. We're going to download the attached Lab 2 instructions and the Altic file, and the Altic files, and save them to the computer you're using. So wherever you want to save them, just make sure you know where you save them so you can find them when it's time to upload it. Watch the Lab 2 More Formulas and Functions video posted here in Blackboard in the lab videos link. And this bit there again, this is going to demonstrate the steps that you need to take for the second assignment. You can watch the video and then perform the steps, or watch the video, watch the step perform, minimize the video, pause it, minimize it, perform the steps, so whichever way you want. Okay, so I have an instruction file, which is a Word document, and then I also have a starting file for this. So this is an Excel file, because you can see altic.xlsx, that indicates it's an Excel file. So I'm going to click on my Excel Lab 2 instructions. I'm just going to open the file and hope my Word doesn't cut out on me. I'm going to enable editing, and as you can see, here's the title, the heading, when it's due. Here's the list of skills you should learn from this lab assignment. So instruction 1 is open the Altic workbook, save the file as Altic, your first and last name. So I'm going to go back here to the assignment, and here it said download the Excel Lab 2 instructions and Altic files. I didn't download the Altic, so I'm going to now click on Altic. I'm going to save this file. Well, I can open it. Let's open it. And then after I open it, I'm going to save it to my desktop. So it's open. Make sure you enable editing so you can change anything in it. And then up here on the ribbon, click on File, Save As. Save it somewhere on your computer. I'm going to put mine on the desktop again, so that's right in front of me. And we're supposed to call it Altic dash your first and last name. And then click Save. Okay, now just like in Lab 1, down here on my taskbar, the very bottom bar on your monitor, you have the Word icon. When you click on it, it's the instructions, and then of course your Excel work file, and you can see the icon that represents Excel as an X. Okay, so we saved it. Now in step 1, we need to insert 3 new rows at the top of sheet 1 and enter the following text into cell A1, Altic Bicycles income statement. So down on my taskbar, I'll bring up my Excel file. Now to insert rows in Excel, I'm going to select the entire row where I want the rows to come above. So to select an entire row, if you click on the number that represents that row, so if I want to select row 1, I'm just going to click right here on that 1. Move your mouse and make sure your pointer changes to a black arrow pointing to the 1. The whole entire row is selected. If I want to select row 5, I point to the 5. My pointer is the shape of a black arrow. I click, it selects the whole row. In Excel, whatever row you have active, and in my case I have row 1 selected, when you insert a row, the rows will come above the area that you have selected. Several ways to insert a row. One way is right now, pointing to the number 1 that represents row 1, you can right click on the 1, and in the shortcut menu, click Insert, and a new row comes in. Another way is on the Home tab in the Cells group, you have a button called Insert. Since I have a row selected, it automatically knows I want to insert a row. So your button here, the Insert button is broken into 2 parts. The top button, and you can look by the what the icon looks like. It shows a picture of inserting a row. I can click on that once, the top part, a row automatically comes in. Or if I click on the second part of that button where it says Insert with a drop down arrow, you click on that, you have the option to insert a cell, insert a row, insert a sheet. We can click Insert a row there. 3 different ways to insert a row. Okay, so I'm going to come down on my taskbar and bring up my Word document. And we need to enter the text Altic Bicycles income statement into cell 1, A1. So I'm going to now, down on my taskbar, click on my Excel icon to bring up my file. And in cell A1, we're going to enter Altic Bicycles income statement. Okay, I'll bring up my Word document. Number 2, in cell A, enter for the years ended December 31st, etc. Okay, and bring into Excel, and A2 we're going to type in for the years ended. Okay, I will now bring up my Word document, and on step 3 we're going to increase the width of column A to 215 pixels and column B to 180. For my taskbar, I'll open my Excel spreadsheet, and how to widen a column is point to the line that separates the column header, which is the A and the B. When your pointer changes to the black plus sign with the arrow pointing to the left and right, left click, hold that mouse button down, and you have 2 settings there. The first set of numbers is number of characters. The second set is pixels. Our instructions said to increase it to 215 pixels. So I'm going to keep dragging to the left until I see 215 on the pixels and let go. Column B, we want it to be 180 pixels. So point to the line that separates the column headers, B and C. Make sure your pointer is the black plus sign with arrows pointing to the left and right. Left click your mouse button, hold it down, and drag across, drag to your right until you see 180 pixels. And let go. I'll bring up my Word document. In the range C6 through E7, we're going to enter the following net sales and cost of sales figures highlighted. So here, it looks like in C6, we're going to enter 125110. So I'll bring up Excel. Starting in C6, we want 125120, hit enter. And the next one was 4140, so I'll bring up Excel, 4140. And for the 2012 figures, you'll see these are the 2 values, and so for 2011. So go ahead and enter the values in those cells. Okay, and then go to cell C11, and for the salaries and wages, sales and marketing, etc. in the 3 years 2011 through 2012 to 2013, enter all of those values, and they should be in the range C11 to E14. So I'll bring up Excel and the wages 1502, and go ahead and finish entering those values. Okay, those are entered. I'll bring up my Word document. It has my instructions, and we're going to enter some more values. So in cell C18 to E18, enter the values for the other income. So bring up Excel on the other income to make sure you're in the correct cell. We should be in C18, so make sure the operating income row, you're not there. Check it right here, make sure it says C18. Make sure the C and the 18 are lit up, and go ahead and enter those values. Okay, I'll bring up my instruction file. And in step 7, we're in the range C20 to E20. Enter those values, and then go ahead and do step 8, cell range C24 to E24. Enter the shares values. Okay, and so your worksheet should look like this. I'm going to go ahead and save it since I've got all this work in. Up on my quick access toolbar, I'm just going to click on the diskette to save it. I'll bring up my Word document. So we're on step 9. In the range C8 to E8, we're going to enter a formula to calculate the gross margin. The gross margin is equal to the net sales minus the cost of sales. I'll bring up my Excel work file. Click in cell C8. Just make sure you're in the correct cell. And we're going to enter a formula. A formula is a calculation that you enter manually. It's not built in like AutoSum up here that we used in the previous lab. This is one you have to type in manually. So all formulas and functions always start with the equal sign. So the first thing you're going to do is type an equal sign, and then you're going to click on the cell. In this case, we want the net sales minus cost of sales. So click on the first cell that you want in the calculation, and the cell that we need is the net sales, so that would be C6. So just click on C6. Notice how C6, the cell reference, comes into the formula. Now this is minus, so type in a hyphen to represent minus, and it's minus cost of sales. Now click on the cell that has the value of cost of sales in it for column C. So the formula should be equals C6 minus C7, which is represented as net sales minus cost of sales. So hit your enter key, and we have our calculation. There again, if you click on cell C8, what you see in your worksheet is the result of the calculation. Up here in the formula bar, what's actually in the cell is a formula. Now, just like the fill handle, we need D8 and E8 to have that same formula in it. So we're going to use the fill handle just like we did in lab 1. Point 2 on cell C8, make C8 your active cell. It's just by clicking on it, and it will have the dark border. The fill handle is the little square box on the bottom right corner of cell C8. Point to it. Make sure that pointer changes to a black plus sign. Left click, hold that mouse button down, and drag across to column D and E, and let go. And there again, it's a relative copy, because notice in C8, the formula is C6 minus C7. Click on cell D8, and the C's change the D because they know we're in column D. And cell E8, there again, when we did the fill handle, it's a relative copy. It changed the D's to E's because they know we're in column E. Okay, the next step is in the range C15 15 to E15, enter the sum function to calculate the total operating expenses for each year. Total operating expenses is the sum of the 4 expense categories. So I'll bring up my Excel, and in cell C15, we're going to add up 4 values here, all the expenses. So just like we did in the previous lab, in this case we're going to use the sum function. There again, it's a calculation that's already built in. So on the Home tab, in the editing group, click on the auto sum button. It comes in and takes a guess at what we want added. It guessed correctly, so all you have to do is hit your enter key. And then now go back to cell C15, and we're going to do use the fill handle to fill that formula or the function across columns D and E. So point to the fill handle, which is the little square on the bottom right corner of C15. When it's the black plus sign, left click your mouse, hold it down, and drag across to column D and E and let go. We're on step 11. In the cell range C17 to E17, enter a formula to calculate the operating income, where the operating income is equal to the gross margin minus the total operating expenses. So this is kind of like the previous formula we did up in step number 9. So I will now bring up my Excel worksheet. I want to be in cell C17, and it's a formula. All formulas and functions start with equal sign, so type in equal sign. Click on the cell that represents the gross margin. Gross margin is C8, so click on it. Notice how it comes up into the formula bar. And we need to subtract, so minus is represented by the hyphen. Let's type in a hyphen. And then it's minus the total operating expenses. Total operating expenses is represented by C15. So click on cell C15 and hit enter. We're going to now fill that formula across to columns D and E. So with cell C17 as your active cell, point to the fill handle, left click, hold the mouse button down and drag across to columns D and E. On step 12, in the range C19 to E19, enter a formula to calculate the pre-tax. Pre-tax is equal to operating income plus other income. So I'll bring up my Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to click in cell C19, and we're going to enter a formula. All formulas and functions start with the equal sign, so type in equal sign. We need to click on the cell that represents the operating income. Operating income is cell C17, so click on cell C17. And that's plus other income, so type in a plus sign. And other income is represented by cell C18, so click on it and hit your enter key. Now we're going to have to take the fill handle on cell C19 and fill it across to column D and E. Step 13, in the range C22 to E22, enter a formula to calculate the company's net income. Net income is equal to pre-tax minus income tax. I'll bring up my Excel worksheet. I'm going to click in cell C22. It's a formula, so type in an equal sign. And it is pre-tax, so click on the cell that represents pre-tax, and that would be cell C19. Type in a hyphen to represent minus. And then income taxes is represented by cell C20. So click on it, hit enter, and with cell C22 active, point to the fill handle on cell C22, hold your left mouse button down and drag to column D and E. Step 14, in cell C25 to E25, enter a formula to calculate the earnings per year, where the earnings per share, Earnings per share is equal to net income divided by the number of shares outstanding. So I'll bring up my Excel worksheet. I'm going to click in cell C25. And we're going to enter a formula. So all formulas and functions start with equal sign. Type in equal sign. And it is the net income. Net income is represented by cell C22. So click on cell C22. Divided by, division in Excel is represented by the /. Type in a /. And click on the number of shares. Shares is represented by cell C25, C24. So click on cell C24 and hit enter. Now with cell C25, your active cell, point to the fill handle, the little square on the bottom right corner of the cell. Hold your, and make sure it's that black plus sign. Hold your left mouse button down and drag across to D, column D and E. Step 15. Format all values, which are numbers, except for the earnings per share and the date values to comma style, no decimals. So I'll bring up my worksheet. So we want to select, no, we don't want to select the date, so these are the years. We don't want to select the earnings per share. So everything except earnings per share and dates. So that would be range C6 to E24. So select all the values except the years and the earnings per share. And we want to format these comma style, no decimals. Several ways to do this. If you point on your home tab in your number group, you have an icon, the third one, and it just a button, and it shows a comma. If you point to it, it says comma style. So you can click on it, and the request is no decimals. So there again we have the increase and decrease buttons here. If we hit the decrease decimals twice, it gets rid of all the decimals. You also have over here in your styles group, if you drop down that more button, this is the more button that shows you all the styles. You also have a comma style here with 0. So whether you use comma here with no zeros, or do it up here with these buttons, either way, it doesn't matter, it's the same effect. We're on step 16. We're going to rename sheet 1 income statement. We're going to rename sheet 2 as documentation and move it to the beginning of the worksheet, and we're going to delete sheet 3. I'll change that. In Excel, well, yeah, we got sheet 1, 2, 3. Okay. We're using 2013. 2013, when we start with a blank workbook, now you only have 1 sheet. If you're using 2010 Excel, you have 3 sheets. So I made this one, I made sure I had the 3 sheets. So if you start, from lab 1, we started from a blank workbook and you only had 1 sheet. So that's typically when you start with a blank. I put extra sheets in here for you. So we'll be adding sheets later in other labs. I just want to make sure you know how to add sheets too. Okay, so bring up Excel. To rename a sheet, we learned this in lab 1. 2 ways to do it. Either right click on sheet 1 and take the option to rename it, and then type in the name, income statement, and sheet 2, we want to name it documentation. So I'll bring up Excel. Another way to rename a sheet is just double click on the name and then start typing. And we also here want to move the documentation sheet to the beginning of the workbook. We want it to be the first sheet, and we want to delete sheet 3. Okay, so how you rearrange your sheets is you just drag and drop. We have our income statement as our first sheet in our workbook, documentation as our second sheet, and sheet 3 as our third sheet. So if you click on the documentation tab, hold your left mouse button down and just drag to the left. Whenever you see the little arrow pointing before the first sheet, the income statement, let go. And now we have documentation as a first, income as a second, and sheet 3 as a third. We're going to delete sheet 3, so the easiest way to delete a sheet is right click on the sheet 3 tab at the bottom, and in the shortcut menu select delete. Okay, now we are on step 17. In the documentation worksheet, enter the following labels and functions in the designated cells. Okay, so I'll bring up in cell A1, we want to type in Altic Bicycles, in cell A3 author, cell A4 date, etc. Over here in cell B3, you're going to enter your name. B4, we're going to enter a date function, and then B5, income statement, the text. Okay, so I'm going to come up to Excel. We need to go to the documentation sheet. Now notice we're in income statement, so make sure you click in the documentation sheet. In cell A1, you're going to type in Altic Bicycles. Hit enter. Hit enter twice, because A3, we want just the word author with a colon, date with a colon, hit enter, and purpose. With a colon. In cell B3, going back to the instructions, cell B3, enter your name. So enter your name, hit enter. And in cell B4, we want a date function, either the now or today function, either one. Okay, as I said, make sure B4 is your active cell. All functions and formulas start with an equal sign. So this is a function. So type in an equal sign. And you can type in now, N-O-W. And that means it's a date function. And then what you have to do, all functions also consist of an open and closed parentheses. So you're going to have to now type in after the W an open and closed parentheses, which is a shift 9 and a shift 0. And then hit enter. And it comes in the date, and actually comes in with military time also. Another function you could have used is, because according to the instructions, we could use either the now or today. How you do the today function is, and I'm just going to go to cell D4 and show you. There again, it's a function, so you type in equal, the word T-O-D-A-Y, and just like we did the now, we have to have an open and closed parentheses for the function, so it's a shift 9 and shift 0, and hit enter. So it doesn't matter if you look up here in cell B4 at the formula bar, whether you use the now, open and close parentheses, or as in D4, the today function, equal today, open and close parentheses. So just one of those two there. And in B5, we just want to enter the text, income statement for Altic Bikes. Okay. I'll bring up my Word document, and we are on step 18. In the income statement worksheet, merge and center the worksheet title in cell A1 across the range A1 to E1. We're going to bold the title and make the font size 14, and we're going to increase the height of row 1 to 51 pixels. I'll bring up my Excel. We want to merge and center. We did this in lab 1. The title, I should be in the income statement, so let me jump over. So we're in the documentation. We need to go to the income statement. So we want to merge the title, which is in cell A1, and we want to merge it across the A1 to E1. So we're going to have to select the range A1 to E1. So move your mouse so that you're pointing right in the middle of cell A1. Make sure that pointer is a white plus sign or a white cross. Left click, hold your mouse button down, and drag all the way over to E1. And on the Home tab, in the alignment group, click the Merge and Center button. And now we're going to bold it. So I already did that. I copied and pasted a while ago, so it's already bold. So in A1, just make sure on the Home tab in the font group you have the B for bold. We're going to make it a size 14. So in the font, in the home tab in the font group, on the font size, click the drop down arrow and click on 14. And now we want to increase the height of row 1 to 51 pixels. Earlier we changed the size of the columns. We had to do 180 pixels, and for column A and B 215. You can do the same for the row. We want the row to be wider. Okay, so if we want row 1 to be 51 pixels, what you want to do is point to the line that separates the row header, and your row header is represented by numbers. So find the line that separates the 1 and the 2. When it changes to a black plus sign with an arrow pointing up and down, left click, hold your mouse button down, and drag until you see where on the pixel size that it says 51. When you see 51, just let go. So we just made the row, we made the height of the row larger. Okay, pull up our instruction file. On 19, we're going to merge and center the subtitle in A2 across the cell range A2 to E2, and we're going to bold the subtitle and make it a size 12. So I'll bring up Excel. We're going to select the range A2 to E2. So we're going to merge and center the subtitle across the width of the worksheet data, and that's the columns A through E. So on the Home tab in the Alignment group, click the Merge and Center button. We also want to bold it, so make sure on the Home tab in the Font group, the B for bold is selected, and we want to change it to a size 12. In my case, it's already a 12. If not, click the Font Size drop-down arrow and change it to a 12. Okay, step 20, bold and italicize the cell range A4 to B25. And we also want to bold and italicize the cell range C4 to E4. So I'll bring up my Excel work file. I want to select the range A4. So make sure you point, move your mouse so that the pointer is a white cross or right plus sign right over cell A4. Left click, hold that mouse button down, and we want to go all the way to B25. So make sure you have the range A4 to B25. So it's basically all the labels in the columns. And we want to bold and italicize. On the Home tab in the Font group, click on the B for bold, I for italics. We also want to bold and italicize the range C4 to E4. So point to the middle of cell E4, left click, hold that mouse button down, and drag across to E4. And then on the Home tab in the Font group, click the B for bold, I for italics. Okay, we are in step 21. We want to decrease the decimal to 4 decimal places in the values in the cell range C25 to E25. We're getting there. Okay. I'll bring up my Excel worksheet. I want to select the range C25 to E25, and right now they default to 6 decimal places. We only want 4, so we're going to decrease the decimals by 2. So on the Home tab in the number group, point to the decrease decimal button, click it twice, and now you should only see 4 decimal positions. Bring up my Word document. We're going to spell check the income statement sheet and make appropriate changes where needed. So I'll go back into Excel, and from here I'm going to hold my control key down and hit home, because I want to start my spell check at the very top of my document. So just like in Word, Control Home takes you to the top of your document. Control Home in Excel takes you to cell A1. If on your Quick Access toolbar you click down the drop down arrow and did the customization, put the spell check up there, you can just click right there on the ABC check mark. Otherwise, you can click on your ribbon the Review tab, and the very first button there where it says ABC spell check. The first thing that comes up is alt tick. That's fine. We want to ignore that, so click on the button that says ignore once. Administrative is spelt wrong. The suggestion is the correct version, so you want to click the change button. Earnings is spelt wrong. The first suggestion it makes there is the correct spelling, so all you have to do is click the change button. So spell check is complete, so click OK. Okay, we're on step 23. Make a clustered bar chart from the data in the cell range B4 to E8. Here's all figures, figure 1, figure 2, and figure 3 of what your 3 sheets are going to end up looking like when you get finished here with it. So if you need to reference any of these, you can just scroll down here and look. I need to check my values here just to make sure I did do my calculations right in here. So I just need to compare these values on the lines that have the where we put the formulas and just spot check and make sure they're right, and they look right to me. Okay, so make a clustered bar chart. So I'm going to bring up my Excel worksheet, and the chart is to be based on the range B4 to E8. So I'm going to click in cell B4, hold my mouse button down, my left mouse button down, drag all the way across to E and down to row 8. So you want the cell range B4 to E8. Up on the ribbon, click on your Insert tab, and in the Chart section, you have a bar chart. It looks like it's the second one on the first row, barring the big one there. Click the drop down arrow, and we want a clustered bar chart. So the very first one in the 2D bar, I pointed to, the screen tip says clustered. That's the one we want, so just click on it. There again, the chart comes right in the middle of all of our data. So on step 24, we want to add data labels to the chart. So I'll bring up my chart. And data labels is just the values that each one of these bars represent will come in. So over here on the right hand side where it says chart elements, click on it. Go down to where you see data labels, check mark it, and notice see the values came into the bar so you can see the exact amounts they are. Move the chart to a new sheet named Cells Chart by selecting the chart, and on the Chart Tools Design tab, select the last button which says Move Chart. So I'll bring up my Excel worksheet. Right here on Chart Tools Design tab, on this ribbon, the very last button there says Move Chart. Click on it. We want to move it to a brand new sheet of its own. And so select New Sheet, and we want this to be called Cells Chart. And click OK. Okay, and I'll bring up the worksheet. Okay. Make the Cells Chart sheet the last sheet in the workbook. And we're going to add the title Cells to the chart. So I'm bring up Excel. I'm going to, okay, the Cells Chart sheet tab came in as the second one. We want it as the last. So all you do is point to the Cells Chart tab, left click, hold that mouse button down, and just drag it till it's at the end. So documentation is our first sheet, income statement is our second, and Cells Chart is our third. We also need to put the title of the chart as sales. So there again, you can just click up there in that chart title. You can select it and start typing, or you can click up here in the formula bar, also the editing bar, and just type in sales. I think this got lowercase. Okay. And there again, I can click the check mark to enter it. I can hit enter. You could have typed it in the box itself. Several different ways to do that. So we want to save it and submit it through the appropriate link in Blackboard. And there again, here is screenshot views of what these should look like. Okay, so I'm going to close out my Word document. I don't need it no more. I have my Excel work file open. Let's save it. So whether you click on the quick access toolbar to save it or file save, doesn't matter either way. Close it. Don't try to upload or submit your file while you still have it open. So close it. Now, if this is Lab 2, so in the assignments link in Blackboard, go to the Lab 2 link, click on it, scroll down till you see the assignment submission section, section 2. We've got to click on the Browse My Computer button and find that file wherever you saved it. I saved mine on the desktop. Wherever you saved it on your computer. So desktop, and it's going to be called Altic with your first and last name. So find Altic right here, first and last name. Either click once and click the open button or double click, whichever method. Make sure under attached files here you see Altic, your first and last name. Scroll down. If you don't see the submit button and hit the submit button, it should come up and say it's been submitted, it's complete. And if you have any problems with it, just yell at me. Good luck.